It's Thursday, November 2nd. This is an end of the day SPY recap, and there's actually about 15 minutes to go in trading, but that won't change much regarding what today's all about. So we'll go over it now. Today, you get a continuation, a two-up day that actually gapped up, and then after a little pause at the open, kind of went up all day long. And you can see here on the daily chart, again, taking out the high of the previous day, holding the midpoint of the previous day, so your bias is always to the upside. There was no hint of a failure early on. I discussed yesterday how, before we knew whether we were going to gap up or not, there was actually an actionable signal to the downside, given that we were inside of the prior week, and that could have been a potential, just a move up inside of that if we got a two down bar. But instead, the market decided to take out this pivot high right out of the gates. I mean, it gapped up above that. And at that point, you're looking, for targets above, since we clearly didn't want to reject this area, on the daily chart. You had a little fair value gap here between the low of that bar and the high of this bar. And that kind of was reached early in the session, and then on the weekly chart, we talked about how yesterday we were kind of inside of the week, but right out of the gates we got a two-up week, and even though there's only 2 days to go and a long way, there is still a target to get up there, and it looks more and more now that since we have if you think this red bar, we took out the lower low, got to the midpoint of this bar, it looks like almost on the weekly chart we want to kind of make a higher high, especially because there's two pivots up here, and if we don't get there tomorrow, then it could certainly be in compound fashion. If we're going to close this week green, which I would guess seems likely, we'll see what tomorrow's all about, then you would think you fall through higher some point into next week, and that kind of starts taking out that area. So that's unfolded to the upside. Also, I've talked about on the monthly chart, you can see here we're still inside of the month, and you can see, as I talked about, there was possible support at the midpoint of that buying tail and resistance at the midpoint of that selling tail. So this is kind of an area where we could still head up to as we're inside of the prior month and possibly fail, and that would kind of coincide. Let me see if it's. No, that's kind of the high of the month. So, at this point, we'll see. This is the interesting thing. Do we kind of compound up and get that two-up month going, which can then signal about all the way back up to the highs, or do we kind of in compound fashion fail to reach that target, meet kind of resistance at that monthly selling tail somewhere up here, and eventually turn down on that chart? To turn down the weekly chart now, we're going to have to maybe probe above it and get to the midpoint of that bar, or get some kind of two-up bar that just kind of fails in here and gets a two down 2 weeks from now. So again, that's kind of the interesting thing. The target's kind of up here, but if we don't reach it and kind of meet some resistance in here, then we can start thinking the short side. But for now, there's nothing to, even on the daily chart, there's been nothing to think about on the short side ever since this two-up day early in the week, even though we might be biased in the bigger picture, to the downside, given the downward trend. But you can see here, there are, strong moves up within that trend. There's a big trend line in here. So you never know, it's not really guaranteed to continue much higher right now. But again, it's not surprising to get this kind of a move to the upside on these downtrends, with the downtrend still intact in the big picture. But for now, we know we have to wait for daily two downs and weekly charts to fail and everything else to confirm our move back down. And it is possible we broaden out higher, and it's possible that this whole downtrend might change and head up. So we'll keep an eye on some of these key levels. And finally, on the quarterly chart, which is this purple line, I decided just to draw that in, because that'll be, I was talking about for a while here how we have a two down quarter, and we still have, all the way till the end of December to get down to this target, but now we've turned green on the quarter. So until we start back down below that line to turn that quarterly chart red again, who knows, maybe we're failing on this quarterly move down, and we'll eventually head up towards those highs. But there's a lot of areas here where it could fail. So, we'll just have to wait now for the weekly charts and daily charts to turn back down. That'll turn this chart back to red. That'll get the continuity of the downside. But until then, everything's to the upside at the moment. So we're going to keep that in mind. So finally, just on the day, even though it might have been a little, tricky given the exhaustion risk, the only thing to even consider was the up open above the pre-market range high, which is between the blue lines. Pause here for 2 bars. Buy here on number 4. 1 push up, pause, second push up. Typical directional day. And, we had our target here to this gap area on that first move up on the day. If I kind of Note that that was right here. That's why you paused there. That was kind of the fair value gap on the daily chart. We filled that in, but didn't really had an early pullback. And then on this green bar, we took out that high and had our second push up on the day, closing near the highs of the day. So again, I would tend to think that we're going to take out these two bar highs on the weekly chart. If it doesn't happen tomorrow, some point in compound fashion, that's what we're looking for. And so we'll play that. It'll be better to get an actionable signal, some kind of pause in here, and then a push up. That'll really be some high probability trades to the upside. Or it's possible we get some kind of big failure, but that's going to take a little time to form now. So anyway, another update on the daily chart. Some of the reference points are in place, and we will see how the week closes tomorrow.